So a long time ago, I told you I would tell you our love story part 2, and there's so many zillions of aspects of our love story to tell because it's such a crazy thing. But I wanted to make part 2 and then just continue to share the story with you for many weeks to come. I want to tell you about the first person who essentially knew that Daniel and I were gonna get married. So after I met Daniel in Holland in the beginning of 2013, and after I had met Daniel, I was going home. And like I shared about in our love story part 1, I had all these things going on in my heart and I just didn't know what was happening in my heart and in my mind, and I just felt like these massive shifts in my heart going on and God talking to me, and I just had no idea what was happening. So that Monday, I got dropped off at the airport by Daniel. He dropped a number of us off at the airport, and I got on my plane and I sat next to it. Was a 2-3-2 plane, so there's 2 seats, then 3 seats, then 2 seats, and I got sat next to this man. He was on my right, I was in the window seat, and I was just crying, and I didn't know why I was crying. I just felt all these emotions, and the guy sitting next to me, I was just crying. I wasn't crying I was just crying quietly, and the man next to me, he was German, man. He didn't speak very good English. And he just said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay, I'm okay." And then he just kind of paused quietly, and then he just looked at me and he said, "You met someone special, didn't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." I didn't know, because I thought Daniel would forget that I exist because he was so wonderful, and I was like, oh my gosh, he would never, ever, he would never think of me as more than a friend. So I was like, yeah, I don't know, and I just said yeah, I don't know. And he just kind of looks at me and smiles, and then he offers me a Kleenex, and then he tells me about his life and how he had this heartbreak, and someone he really loved died, and he was going to America to pack up their belongings, and then he starts crying. So I'm crying, and this German guy next to me on the plane is crying, and we're crying together, and he gives me another Kleenex, and then he kind of just I was just I'm so sorry, we're crying together. And then he just kind of nods his head, and we go back to, where we were, and, our own little space. And then, and that was that. And we wished each other goodbye as we got off the plane. And that man has no idea that I was crying about Daniel, who was my husband. So wherever that man is out there, that sweet German man, he just for some reason knew. I could have been crying about 1,000 billion things, and he just said, you met someone special, didn't you? And knew that I was crying because of that. And that was a very, very, very crazy moment. And I just, he just knew. He was the first person who knew what was going on in my heart, and it was very, very strange and very, very cool and very, very bizarre all at the same time. It was pretty awesome. So that's just a fun little story. A bizarre, fun story. I get a lot of questions about the way we were able to get married from other countries. We were on a K1 visa. If you've seen 90 Day Fiancé, that's what we did, but without all the crazy drama. We did a K1 visa, so once Daniel arrived in America, after a lot of paperwork and a lot of appointments and things like that, after he arrived in America, we had to get married within 90 days. So we got married about 60 days after Daniel had arrived in America. As I shared in our love story part 1, we spent time, Daniel lived in America for 6 months before that, and we spent time living in the same city because that was really important to us, and so we got married 60 days after that, and then we had more immigration meetings and all different kinds of stuff, and then Daniel got a green card, and that's why he stays here in America. And so it's really been crazy. It's been awesome. It's been crazy, but those are a couple things I want to share. I get a lot of questions about that second half. I wanted to share that with you today, so you see little snippets of the things. There's so many things to tell, but I'll be sharing those with you over time. That's all for today. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.